which is a very, very important part of your weekly work. You'll want to make sure when you log in, you move to your store. So we're going to go down to Lone Tree. You should probably only have your store showing up here, not a whole list of them. And when you first pop up, you will have your registry, which is all of your census for each system that you have. At Lone Tree, we have a bass tank, a trout tank, and a holding tank. Super important to make sure your census is accurate each week. So when you come in to log things into ORCA, I would make sure, if you had any changes to your population, you add it that week so you don't forget. So this week we did have to euthanize a trout, unfortunately, at our Lone Tree location. So I will show you how to move or reduce an individual from your census. So you'll click the Move Reduce button. You will then select your exhibit. So for here, it was the trout tank. Make sure your transaction type is mortality for a euthanasia, or if you found a fish deceased, you would make it a mortality. If you were moving the fish from one tank to another, so let's say you pulled a trout to holding, you would put intra-facility and then move the area into holding. So you would take a trout intra-facility to holding, and then you would click on it. But for today, we are doing a mortality. So I would say I was removing a rainbow trout from the trout exhibit. Click this red arrow, and then you fill out the date that it happened. No need to really specify the time here, and then collect one of the values here. Make sure your quantity is accurate, so 1. Then when you click for a disposition, make sure you say it's decomposed, like if you found it in the exhibit dead, or if you pulled and euthanized it, you'd say decomposed as we placed it in the freezer. If you did have to send it to the lab and you euthanized to send to a lab, you'll make sure you specify that, but unknown isn't really relative here, so we'd say decomposed. And then just make sure you specify that you euthanized on 3/25 or whatever day it was. It's okay to backlog if you did it earlier in the week. And you would say why, like it was due to a severe injury or whatever the case may be. Then you would click the green button here. Since I've already logged this, I'm not going to do it, but it would show up, your trout would show up on this side, as in it's becoming a mortality, and then you'll click the green arrow. Down here, it shows that I did this transaction earlier in the week on March 19th, and that's where it would show up when you do it as well. Next, it's super important to log your water quality. So you'll go over to the exhibit tab, to the drop down environmental results. And then you'll want to make sure you've got your correct exhibit that you're going to log water quality for. So I'm going to do it for the bass tank today. Make sure your date is correct. Make sure it's the day that you did the water quality. We did it on Tuesday. Time does not matter, so leave it as is. And then you'll type in each display water quality parameter as you tested it. So I'll go ahead and log in this quickly. If anything is too numerous to count, so it's possible that you'll have your tan or possibly chlorine, something like that would be too numerous to count. You get a 3+ signs on your colorimeter. You just click over here on the TNTC button, and that will just mark it out as too numerous to count. Again, if any of your variables are too numerous to count or not within your water quality ranges for your store, definitely reach out to us and let us know so we can get it under control. Oopsie. Orange would always be 0 for any of your main tanks here. If the only reason you would not have a 0 for chlorine is if you were doing your fill source once a month. So your city water will likely not have 0 milligrams per liter of chlorine. So that's the only time it's acceptable, but really you should always be having a 0 chlorine value when you're logging into OERCA. And then your water use is super important. We will make sure every week that you've logged your water use. This is how much water you've lost due to a backwash or a water change. And then once all of your parameters are logged for the week, you'll click submit, right? And then to go back and look at your parameters, you'll go to exhibit tab down to exhibit dashboard. You'll select your group and then your exhibit that you want to look at. We're going to look at the bass tank. OERCA always needs a little bit extra time to do its thing, so it's going to load for a little bit. There we go, and it'll all pop up and tell you everything you need to know about your exhibit. I always like to point out that your gallons, the volume of your tank will be right here on your exhibit dashboard if you ever need to know that, which you will. So real quick, you'll want to make sure that your environmental test was logged here. So you've got your environmental results from the 18th. Everything I just logged was right here. So that's perfect. Everything looks like I wanted it to. I got my water quality and then my water usage popped up down here in this column here. And now we're going to go ahead and add our treatments in. So to add our treatments, you'll go down to exhibit again to the drop down treatment. And pull up your treatments for the bass tank. This week, I'll log everything we did on Monday. I will select treatment storage. Again, time does not matter for this. You have to always select the day again and treatment storage if it's not 2 days, so it was 17th month. Treatment storage, that day we did potassium permanganate. So I did 16 grams of potassium permanganate. This was for a specific treatment. I'm going to log that. You will log any treatments you do, even if they are not related to your backwash or dosing after backwash. And you'll have to go back after that treatment I did. I did a backwash, which was a 17% backwash. So backwash percent 17. And I gotta change the date back. Treatment storage. I'm also dosed with sodium thiosulfate in grams. So I'll go down sodium thiosulfate grams added. 0.74 grams. Back to my date. Treatment storage. Salt, I added sodium chloride in pounds, added 15 pounds of salt. Make sure your units are correct. They do have several options. So for alkalinity booster, they do have ounces versus liters. For sodium thiosulfate, they do have milliliters versus ounces versus grams. So there's, you really want to pay attention to what you're logging there. At Lone Tree specifically, we do add sodium thiosulfate in crystal form, so we do grams. If you're doing your sodium thiosulfate solution as your 4 cups of sodium thio to half a gallon of distilled water, you'll do it in milliliters. So you just want to pay close attention to what you're doing. In terms of AmClear to dechlorinate, there is not that option on here, so you will not have to add AmClear as a treatment on OERCA. That in for sodium chloride. Again, sodium chloride is salt. And then the other important values you want to make sure you add in here are your filter service minutes. This is how many minutes of each cycle were in your backwash. So your backwash, rinse, and waste. At the store, we have a 3-minute backwash cycle, a 1-minute rinse, and a 2-minute waste. So that's 6 minutes times 2 filters. We had 12 minutes of filter service. This, you can show your recent treatments to make sure you logged everything before you leave this page. So on the 17th, I did my potassium permanganate. I also included my backwash percent, my filter service minutes, sodium fluoride, and my sodium thiosulfate. So that covers everything I wanted to add.